My name is Nolan, and believing that love lives or dies by trust has always been my compass. Without trust, love is a beautifully told lie. I was engaged to a woman named Tessa. We had years in the bank routine, memories, plans, and for a long time it felt like momentum was carrying us somewhere steady. Then one night, rewrote the map in a few lines of text on a dim phone screen. I met Tessa at a friend's housewarming, one of those nights where the music is a touch too loud, and the guest list is a mesh of people who don't really know each other yet. Our conversation started like all the others. Where do you work? Where do you live? But it slid into hours without either of us checking a clock. After that, we kept in touch. Coffee when schedules allowed turned into lunches, and the casual cadence shifted into dinners that didn't want to end, and late calls that bled into morning. Eventually, we put a word on what we were doing and called it a relationship. We didn't sprint, and we didn't stall. Over 3 years, what we built felt sturdy. By the second year, weekends took on a shape. Tessa would show up most Fridays with an overnight bag, and we'd make my place ours until Sunday night. She never moved in, and neither of us felt a rush to tape boxes and change leases. The arrangement fit. Her apartment was smaller. I went there sometimes, but living there full-time didn't make sense, and we didn't need to press it. One of the things I admired most early on was her openness. She never ducked past tense questions, old relationships, missteps, family knots. She made a point of naming people in her orbit, including a childhood friend she described as like a brother, someone she said she'd never been romantically involved with. I didn't interrogate it. Nothing in her behavior suggested an angle. Trust for me wasn't a performance. It was the baseline. Eventually, I proposed. She said yes. We started sketching a future, the kind that lives on shared notes in our phones and in conversations after dinner. We tossed around ideas for a simple ceremony, honeymoon spots, guest lists, neighborhoods we liked, the shape of a home we'd fill. I stepped in with all the parts that make those sketches real. Saving, planning, arranging so the life she said she wanted could land with both feet. It felt aligned. Appearances can fool you when you want them to. A Friday evening arrived like dozens before it. Tessa came in with her weekend bag, said hello in the kitchen, and slid right into our rhythm. Over dinner, she mentioned, lightly, that she'd need to run back to her parents' place the next day. Family stuff, she said, and then she changed the subject. I nodded. She didn't always love digging into family logistics, and I didn't pry. Respect has a quiet form. After dinner, we moved to the couch and queued up a movie we'd been meaning to watch all week. Halfway through, her head tipped onto my shoulder. She fell asleep, the kind of deep slip your body takes when it's used up. I kept my arm around her and let the credits run. Her phone, on silent, kept lighting up little rectangles of light on the table edge that I chalked up to group chats. When the movie ended, I leaned forward to wake her gently so we could move to bed. My eyes drifted to the screen that had just flashed again. Without thinking, my hand reached, and I picked it up to stop the glow. We had each other's codes by agreement from early on, not to police, but to make worry a non-issue. Even before unlocking, the previews on the lock screen weren't the kind of messages a brother sends. I entered her code. What I saw next didn't need translation. Flirty lines, intimate emojis, inside references that don't live in daylight. Under that, the part that loosened something at the center of my chest, were plans. His message, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." Her reply, a heart. Then, I told him I'd be at my family's. We're good to go. Timestamp, a few hours earlier, likely while we were passing salad back and forth at the table. I didn't shake her awake, didn't start a scene with a phone in my hand as evidence. I sat there and watched the woman I intended to marry sleep peacefully, and it felt like standing in a house after an earthquake. Everything looks the same for a moment, and nothing is. Questions flooded in ways that felt useless. Was I not enough? When did the line bend? How long had she been building this side life? Morning didn't pause because I needed it to. Tessa stirred, kissed my cheek, moved through her routine in a practiced sequence, teeth, hair, a few things back into her bag. As she moved, she said she'd miss me, said she wished weekends were longer, said she'd try to leave work earlier next time so we could have more time. I listened. The words felt like something she'd said in a mirror the night before to get them smooth. She noticed I was quieter than usual. "Are you okay?" she asked, head tilted, tone gentle. I shrugged the old line. "Nothing." She chuckled like she always did, nudged my arm, tried to put us back in a lane where the air wasn't tight. I forced a small smile and held what I had learned like a stone in my chest. We walked to the door because ritual carries you even when you think it shouldn't. I opened it like 100 times before. She stepped past the threshold and turned, waiting for the usual, "Drive safe. Text me when you get there." This time I said, "Good luck on your date." Her face moved through a handful of emotions without landing confusion, fear, denial, like a screen buffering under bad signal. "Wait, what are you talking about?" she said, voice cracking at the edges. I lifted my hand, small, clear enough to say, "Stop." "There's no need," I said, and closed the door. Silence lasted a blink. The knock started, loud, desperate, like she could rewind sound by pushing against wood. The knocking turned into sobs and pleading through the barrier. "Please, open the door. Let me explain." It didn't mean anything. "I won't go. I'll cut off anyone you want." A flood of words that tried to fill the floor I'd just pulled back. My phone buzzed on repeat notifications, stacking until it felt like an alarm. I looked. It was what I knew it would be, her messages piling up into a thread that didn't change the facts. If it truly meant nothing, why lie to make it happen? Why use family as a cover? Why go at all? The part of me that had built a life with her wavered toward replying. The part that had spent all night staring at her phone held the line. I didn't open. Eventually, hours later, the knocking stopped. The crying thinned to silence. The thread of messages went still. She left. It didn't end there. Weeks stacked, and the texts kept landing. She didn't even perform detachment anymore. The short pleads arrived at all hours. "Please talk to me. I didn't mean to hurt you. Let me explain. I miss you." One night after midnight. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'll keep asking until you tell me to stop." I didn't block her. I rarely opened them. I let the previews show me the tire tracks of desperation and put the phone face down. One weekend, the knock came again. I didn't move at first. She stayed. 15 minutes passed with soft taps and her voice through the door. "Nolan, please. I'm not here to argue. I need to talk." Silence. Then, "You were right. I messed up, but please at least let me explain." I opened the door and stood there. "Explain," I said. She told me she'd been emotionally confused, that it wasn't love, that it was some old part of her life she didn't know how to file. She admitted to lying, to thinking I wouldn't find out, to feeling safe enough behind the family story to sneak a weekend. She said it wasn't serious. She said it didn't mean anything. I let her talk until she ran out of words and looked at me like a judge who hadn't said a ruling yet. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Would you have told me if I hadn't found out?" She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes dropped to the floor. No words arrived. That silence was louder than any speech she could have given. If I hadn't picked up her phone and read those messages, she would have gone, come back, smiled, and kept planning a wedding over the top of it. I stepped back. She looked up with a face full of hope, like maybe I had one more boundary I could push past on her behalf. "I can't build a marriage on this," I said. "This engagement is based on lies." She tried to speak. I lifted my hand again, small, steady. "No yelling," I said. "No more messaging. Don't come here. Let this be the last time." I closed the door. She stood on the other side for a beat, the way people do when the thing they want doesn't happen. Then she left. People say love is built on trust. They don't always name what happens when trust breaks. It isn't just the trust that falls, it cracks the love, too. Like dropping a glass you've drunk from for years and watching it shatter into questions. You can be sure of a person, build plans, invest time, put emotion on the table with both hands, and still have the floor move under your feet. What hurt most wasn't just the lie. It was what the lie proved, that she could hide something big and smile at me over dinner. I found myself replaying moments and asking whether the lines had been genuine or rehearsed. I'm not going to pretend I've solved all of it. I'm not going to pretend I've closed every file neatly and slept great ever since. But I am clear on this. I deserve honesty. So here's the question that might help someone else standing by a door like mine. What would you have done? Did I handle it the right way? Is there something I missed? Something worth doing differently? Drop your thoughts. Sometimes another person's words land like a light in a room where someone's been sitting in the dark a little too long.